Okay, so let's dive into something pretty profound. We're going to talk about a huge evolutionary shift that's supposedly happening right now. It's this idea that people, everyday people, are starting to learn how to operate with one foot in our normal physical world and the other in a non-physical, you could even say a divine reality. And this isn't just some philosophical idea. It's about the rise of what our source material calls the co-creator.
I mean, that's a pretty bold statement, right? It really sets the stage. We're not talking about some minor tweak in how we see things. What this is really saying is that we're at a tipping point for the whole planet. We're moving into a brand new era of human potential, where we're not just living in reality, we're actively helping to shape it, right alongside some kind of divine intelligence.
So where does all this co-creation happen? Well, it happens in what the sources call the fourth level reality. And this is absolutely crucial. This is not a metaphor. It's described as a real, actual, non-physical plane of existence. Think of it like a blueprint world that exists right alongside ours, the kind of place mystics have been talking about for centuries. In this realm, the rules are different. It's not about dense, physical matter. It's all about consciousness, energy, and intention.
Now you might be thinking this whole age of the co-creator thing sounds super new age, right? But the thing is, the practice of actually getting into these inner worlds, well, that's anything but new. This modern movement is really standing on the shoulders of giants, pioneers who first started mapping these divine territories a long, long time ago.
That's right. For millennia, across pretty much every culture and wisdom tradition you can think of, there have been these unique individuals, people who could consciously journey into these non-physical realms. You could say they were the original co-creators, the very first explorers who came back with maps and knowledge of the universe's unseen architecture.
And this slide gives us just a few powerhouse examples from history. You've got figures like Hermes Trismegistus, who is said to have gotten his teachings directly from cosmic beings, giving us that foundational idea, as above, so below. Then there's the mystic Hildegard of Bingen, whose incredible visions turned into art and music that were just infused with this divine intelligence. Fast forward to the 20th century, and you have Carl Jung, who gave us a modern language for these inner worlds by mapping out the collective unconscious. And of course, Jesus is presented here as the ultimate archetype of the divine human, a living, breathing bridge who showed what it looked like to master these energetic laws and make the divine real right here on Earth.
So those pioneers, they often walked a very lonely path. But now we're seeing an evolutionary leap. The sources describe this shift from these solo mystics to a whole new collective wave of modern-day practitioners.
So what's the big difference between then and now? In a word, accessibility. For all kinds of reasons, a growing collective awareness, new developments in consciousness studies, things like meditation research, or even energy medicine, is just becoming safer and more possible for a lot more people to consciously tap into and navigate these other dimensions.
This slide just lays it out so perfectly. The pioneers, they were often lone wolves. Their knowledge was hidden, wrapped up in esoteric language and myths that were hard to decipher. But today's co-creators, it's a totally different ballgame. They're working together collaboratively, they're creating systematic practices, and, most importantly, they're checking their work through shared direct experience. It's a huge shift in how this knowledge gets developed and passed on.
And who are these modern co-creators?
Well, that's the cool part. They're not monks hiding away in a monastery. They're us. They're teachers, artists, parents, healers, you name it. They are people who are totally grounded in their day-to-day lives, but at the same time, they're consciously working with these higher spiritual patterns, building that bridge between the divine and the everyday.
To get a better handle on this whole collaborative effort, the source breaks it down into 5 key roles, or archetypes. First, you have the energy sensitives. They're like the early warning systems for energetic shifts. Then there are light workers, who consciously anchor positive energy into the planet's energy field, sometimes called grid work. You also have spiritual stewards. They're the guardians of sacred wisdom and sacred places. Gatekeepers work at the thresholds between dimensions, kind of making sure everything is safe for people exploring consciousness. And finally, space holders are amazing at creating these stable, safe energy fields where deep healing and group work can happen. You see how they all work together? It's like a whole spiritual ecosystem.
Okay, so you've got these ancient pioneers and these modern co-creators, separated by centuries, using different methods. So what's the common thread? What ties them all together? Well, it turns out they all work from a shared set of beliefs about how reality really works.
These 4 core assumptions are basically the operating system for all of this work.
First, the belief that spiritual influence is real, that these non-physical realms actually respond to our focused attention. Second, the idea that when we work together, when we align our intentions, our impact is magnified, so much more powerful. Third, this understanding that our inner world and the outer world are totally connected. You can't heal the planet without doing the spiritual work, and vice versa. And finally, and this is the big one, the idea that our own mind, our consciousness, is the bridge. It's the tool that lets us access and play in both realities.
Okay, this brings us to a really fascinating part of all this. The goal of the modern co-creator movement isn't just to have personal experiences. It's to take all that experiential knowledge, that gnosis, and formalize it into a whole new kind of science.
And let's be super clear here. We are not talking about a science with microscopes and particle accelerators. No, this is a science of the inner worlds. It's a science of consciousness itself, of energy, of universal patterns or archetypes. It's built on direct experience, it's fine-tuned through careful observation, and it's validated when a whole community of people start recognizing the same repeated patterns.
So how in the world do you turn a mystical experience into a verifiable science? Well, it seems to be a three-step process. Step one is symbolic mapping. That's where you track a recurring symbol, like the world tree, and see how it pops up in the visions of people from totally different cultures. That points to a shared inner map. Step two is community verification. This is where a group of people meditating together might all independently report feeling the same energy shift at the same time, which helps confirm what's happening. And finally, step three is integrated validation, where you try to connect those subjective reports with measurable physical data, like seeing if everyone's brainwaves or heart rates sync up during the experience.
So why does any of this matter? What's the end game here? According to the sources, the ultimate goal is nothing short of the emergence of a new kind of consciousness, the divine human. This is about unlocking the potential that's supposedly inside every single one of us to live fully connected to both the physical and the divine worlds. And if that happens, it doesn't just change us, it changes the very fabric of society.
So this journey from the lone mystic to a worldwide network of co-creators, it's a huge moment. It suggests we're finally moving past this illusion that we're separate from everything. The divine isn't some distant thing to be worshipped anymore. It's a living reality to be embodied and created with. The blueprint for this new world is there. So the final question is really for you. Are you ready to help build it?